Welcome back to the TOUCHDESIGNER training course. Today we're going to have the second session, and for that we are going to use for the first time TOUCHDESIGNER. Today is going to be our first approach to the software, and we are going to be covering all what is related with the user interface and with the controls that we need to have to interact with our system. As we saw in the first session, the first thing that we're always going to get when we open TOUCHDESIGNER is going to be this simple network. For the explanation today, I'm going to make a small network too. It's really simple and it will just require a few images that I'm going to import to the system. I'm going to make a switch, and in that way I will organize all the content for this session. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to erase all of this, and I'm going to drag to my network the content from the folder where I have all the files. In this case, I have these 6 images that will serve to me as examples. So let's organize it. I want to see first this one. After that, I'm gonna check the parameters. After that, we will see how the mouse works, and at the end, the parameter modes. Perfect. So as I told you in the first session, and I want to repeat it today, the way that we are going to understand our network will be always from left to right. All the nodes and all the logic from for our networks needs to be working from left to right. So all the information always flows from left to right inside the nodes and inside the networks. That's why I always be organizing all the elements that are from the same category or the same hierarchy in a column, always in the left side. Okay, now what I want to do is to group everything with a switch, and in that way I will be able to select what I want to show, and at the end I'm just going to make a null, just like a step. All of these are good practices. We are going to be covering good practices in our sessions, and the null, always finishing every network with a null, it's one of the best practice that we have when we are programming in TOUCHDESIGNER. So now I'm getting this, but I want to make something for the background. I want that background be white. I'm going to turn off this. I'm just going to make a constant. This constant will be have the same size as the main image, and after that I'm just going to unify it with an over on top. Perfect. Now I can activate it, and I will have the image in the background. Okay, so how I told you, this is a really simple network. All what I have here is 6 images that are imported from outside. Everything is being grouped by this switch, and it's a switch because I can change what is the element that it's been showing in the background. After that, I have this switch. I will make something similar that what we do with TOUCHDESIGNER or with Illustrator, and is that I'm going to create a layer, and on top of that layer I'm going to put another content as a second layer on top of that. And after that, I'm going to finish with a null operator that doesn't really change the information of our network, but it's going to make like a checkpoint. And I'm using it to show all the content that is inside that operator with the flag that it's in the corner, in the low corner at the right. And it's just a blue circle that it says display. And actually this is what we are going to cover now, and it's the node parts. So how we saw in the first session, all what we have here in TOUCHDESIGNER is known as a node. We can call those things nodes. But also there are things such as operators and another as a component. So the components, the family component is this first, that it's basically boxes where you can do process inside, and all the rest of the columns are operators. And the difference between a component in an operator is that we cannot navigate inside a operator, we can navigate inside a component. This is the main difference. After that, everything is going to work in the same way. So we will know all those things as nodes, and all those nodes has specific tools, depends of the family where we are. So here in the image at the background is a aggregation of all the elements that we can find. There is not any operator like this. I mean, here we find all the flags available. And what we want to do here is to understand what are the different elements that we can find inside a node. So any node, like all of those that we have here, or all of those that we can create just selecting here in the OP create dialog, have the same structure. Always we'll find a column in the left side with those flags. The first flag is viewer, is the circle with the point in the center, and this is a button or a flag that we can use to activate. In this case, I'm going to create a container, for example. I can use this flag to activate the visualization of the node. If it's deactivated, it's going just to show a circle without the point in the center, and it's going to put the three first letters of the name of that kind of operator. In this case, it's container, CTN. If I activate it, it will show everything what I have available inside. I'm gonna make another one like a geometry. In this case, I'm gonna deactivate the viewer, and in this case, it's going to show me geo because it's the three first letters of geometry. But if I activate it, I will have access to the visualization of the information and all the processes that are being processed inside. The next is immune, and this is something that we are going to cover later because it's a bit complex, but it happens that we can make kind of master operators that manage the behavior of the clone of those master operators. We will use those to make like repetitive work or repetitive task, and in that way we can change just one element, and this is going to be reflected in the clones. But if we don't want that any one clone be changed by the master, we can use this button that is, again, this one that we have here, that is immune, to prevent that this clone be changed by the master. But how I say to you, this is something that we're going to cover later. The next button is cooking. Here in TOUCHDESIGNER, we are going to use that word cooking when any process is being made. So always that a frame or a second or a part of the second change is because the system is cooking. And we will find also in all the containers. For example, I have this button here. We'll find the first, the viewer, the immune, and I have the X, that it's cooking. If I click cooking, all the viewer is going to turn black, and that means that anything that is inside is going to be processed. Now everything that is here inside, it's also cancelled, as you can see here. If I activate it again and I try to get inside, it's going to be activated. If I click and turn everything off and I open the viewer active, I cannot interact with this container. I need to have this cooking to can really interact with the bottom in this case. The fourth is bypass. Bypass, we will just find it if we are in the middle of a process. I mean, it depends if this process has inside information and outside. And now I'm gonna make a LFO that it's a low frequency oscillator to have a data that it's moving in real time. And now I'm gonna make a math, and after that a null. Now all of those three are showing the same information, and math, I will use it to multiply this value that I have here in the first element. So I'm going to multiply now is for 1, so it's going to be the same value because everything that is multiplied by 1 is the same. So now I can put 5, for example, and now this value is 5 times the first. And now I can see that I have LFO with a regular value, the default that I have when I created. After that, I connected to the math. This math is multiplying this value by 5, and what I have in the outside of this operator is the same value that is being shown in the math. But if I click in bypass, this is going to be turned again to the first, because any process that it's being here is activate now. So what really happened with the bypass is that the first input is passed directly to the output. That means that this input passed directly to the output. So anything that is inside this process is being active now. And the last here is the lock. When we use lock, is because we want to prevent that somebody make any change, and it's also going to stop the process in that exact moment. So in this case, when I'm using an operator that creates its own values, its own information, and I click lock, everything is going to keep there inside. The same happened here, for example, with the movie filing. The movie filing can be used to bring images or to bring videos, for example. So now I'm gonna use a video. Now the bottom it's lock open. The video is being playing, but if I click in lock, what it's going to be is that it's going to save the last frame that was being played in this element, and I can use it now like an image, like a regular image at the end. So we already covered those flags that are always in the left column, and now we want to see what's happened with the flags that are on the bottom of the operators. All the operators also depends on the nature of those operators has different flags. For example, the operators that are from the texture family only has the display flag. That is this one that I'm using here to show also the information that is in the back. So every time that I click on the blue button, I'm gonna get the label of display, and when I click display, this content that it's being rendered inside the texture operator will be in the background of my network. If I click in two different, for example this one and the video, the background is begin to divide in all the elements that I have activated the display button. The other one is render, and this is something that is just going to work with 3D content that it's being rendered. For example, I'm gonna make a really fast context of rendering. What we will need is a camera, a light, a 3D object, and a render operator. So those four operators is everything what I need to make a render context. I have the camera here that if I activate it, I can change the scene. I also can activate the light and reubicate and change the behavior of my light. And also I have the geometry with certain parameters that let me change the properties. So the size, the rotation, the translation, the scale, everything. For example, I can make it rotate. And what it's about render, okay. For example, here we will find three different containers. All of them has display, has render, and has pickable. In this case, just the geometry has the render activated. If I turn it off, my render is not going to recognize anything because there is anything that is activated with the render flag. The camera and the light are also elements that can be rendered. For example, here the camera, this is the light, is kind of a cone. So let's see if I turn this on and I try to find the camera, we'll see it. Look how the camera is. This is this is how the light it's made as a 3D object, but I can see it just if the render flag is on. And it's the same for the camera. I can create another camera here, for example, and look, this is the 3D representation of a camera. If I turn on this camera and here inside also needs to be on, I will see the 3D object that represent the camera. But we usually don't really need this. We just will activate the render button for the 3D content. For example, in this case, is this donut or is this torus. So that's what it means, the render flag in this case. There are also the template, the compare, and the pickable we are going to cover later, because in this moment we are just going to use display and render. There are also another part of every node that it's the label of the name in the bottom of the viewer active. So you will find it in the containers, you will find it in every family, in every kind of operators in this case. And this is the way that we are going to activate the interaction with our elements inside every operator or inside every container. For example, if I have bottom here, if it's off, I cannot interact with the bottom. If I do click, it's going to bring me in of that container. But if I want to interact with that bottom, because I need to click it to activate it or not, I need to click on that viewer active, and now all the elements around disappear. The only thing that I have available is the bottom to deactivate the viewer and the label of the operator, and now I can trick my bottom because the viewer active is activated. And it happens the same with the channel operator, for example. If I try to get the information of any element, any channel inside, I cannot do it. I just will drag my operator. But if I activate it, now I can get that information and translate it to another place. Look how the cursor change. So this is something that we are going to cover later. Okay, so for now, this is the first part that we need to understand how the node works. So we have this part in the left column. We have the bottom with all the flags. It depends what is the family. We have also the label where we can change the name. and there will be always an out, and not always, but in most of the operators that will be always an in. And I'll say that not always, but because there are operators that can create content by themselves. For example, in the movie file in, that it's always bringing information, it's always bringing images or videos, I don't have an entrance connector, but I always will have an outside connector, an out connector. And this is the way that we're going to connect our information, always from left to right. And always also understanding that I just can connect one out with an in if they are the same color. If I try to connect, for example, this violet out with a green in, the connector just going to close, how you can see here. I will need a operator from the same family to really connect those two operators. And it will be always the same. Every family just can connect with the same family. We can make interactions between different operators from the different families, but those interactions are not made with the cables, are made with references. And this is something that we are going to cover later. For now, we just need to understand that I can connect elements with cables just if my out and my in are in the same color.